I do want to go back a little bit to, a little bit beyond the choreography and kind of into, I'm assuming dance like in high school and college, right? Like, you talked about learning and teaching choreography, to your cousins. And obviously that's a very kind of informal setting. But then talk to me about, dance in a much more structured, collaborative, and you could arguably say kind of competitive. And I use competitive in the loosest of terms, especially if you're trying to join a dance team, right? Like that's maybe the only, or if you're joining a dance team, or if you're on a dance team competing against another dance team, right? Like that's kind of I think the two elements of competition to a degree. So talk to me a little bit about that, and how that went from informal family dance outings and get-togethers to more structured out or more structured dance types of formats.
Yeah, growing up in San Diego, there was a lot of dance. There were dance crews formed by people who were in high school. So some of my contemporaries were on dance teams before they made it kind of big and other bigger dance teams. But for me, it started out in high school, and the high school scene. Let's see if I can work my way back into history. A big reason why the Asian American community, particularly in California, got into dance is because uh, these dance street forms, were taken into an event called Filipino Cultural Nights that showed up at colleges, right? And the it got traction. There were these groups of young Asian Americans, Filipinos who wanted to dance in college. And it picked up popularity, and then it traveled to different colleges. And that college scene then influenced the high school scene. And that was kind of my entry into more formal choreographic dancing. So I joined in high school a team called Direct Input out of Montgomery High School in San Diego, California. And it was kind of like an air band / dance team. And if you're not familiar with the term air band, it's kind of like a dance team that puts on a dance performance, but it's themed to some kind of story. Think Cinderella, but through dance, or think Beauty and the Beast, but through dance, or Peter Pan, if you will. And that started to evolve. There were air band competitions in high school, but then people just wanted to dance to good music, and so dance teams would put together these different sets of different pieces of choreography to different songs, and you would perform that set for maybe your high school assembly, or it was a high school Filipino culture night, or just an exhibition in your high school cafeteria, which was my first performance with Direct Input. And so that's what it was. But there was kind of always a direct line to some kind of college event or people who were influenced by the college scene. So already in high school, I'm looking forward to what the collegiate scene can provide for me in terms of dancing. When I graduated high school, I had not been dancing for a while because the group kind of fizzled out. The seniors graduated, but I really wanted to get into dance uh, again, and that's because I was going to a place. I was moving from Southern California to the Bay Area to go to school, and this is where no one knew me, and I could really define what I wanted to do. And that was my kind of break into formal collegiate dancing that was competitive.
I was gonna say, talk to me a little bit about, yeah, that collegiate experience and what it was like, right, to have to, let's say, compete, right, to join a dance team. And the reason why kind of I say this is because actually I tried to join a dance team, not intentionally. I went along, with someone as well, and I didn't have a dance background. And so she just wanted to do it for fun. But I realized how difficult it was to join a dance team, especially if you don't have a dance background. Like, it's not impossible. Like, there are people who have done it, but it is hard to, if you're not used to some sort of choreography, whether it's dance, martial arts, like what are the next steps? How do you memorize all the choreography in a short period of time, right? that's something where like I was not used to that pace. But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts as a dancer of like, what was your first experience like joining or trying out for a collegiate team, and how that kind of differed from high school a bit?
When I was young, in high school, I tried out or attempted to try out for one of the prominent dance studios youth teams. And so I had been through kind of an audition process, even though I'd never danced at a studio or I'd been a part of a formal team, and had gone through the process of dancing, performing, and then being rejected. So I was familiar with the process going in to college. But and I think much is the case for many kind of collegiate dance teams at that time, which is around 2010 and into now, where you have to learn a piece of choreography or two, and then you go into a round where you have to do it in groups, and the judges watch you, and maybe you get called back to perform the choreography again. And in some cases, the dance team cares about, what kind of person you are as well. So there might be an interview. I think for me, I was so jazzed to to get into the scene. I knew what it was like. I saw dancers around San Diego who were doing it in high school, and I so badly wanted that to be me, that I tried really hard. So I joined Main Stacks at UC Berkeley in 2010, and their audition setup was you would learn the choreography first one day, and then there would be a performance day, maybe a week or a few days after that. And you would have a chance to link up with a group and practice the choreography, and even have some creative freedom yourself to make some changes, add formations, and then even choreograph a piece on your own. And so I was like, well, I treated this like a project. Like, I have to get this done because this is something I super want to do. But I was primed for it, right? Like, I had an expectation of what I needed to do and what was expected of me. I think if I were to go into it not being a dancer, absolutely, it's super hard. I mean, even as a dancer, there's so much pressure and you feel people watching you. But for someone who doesn't have that background, it's like, well, shoot, like, this is really, really hard. To just learn choreography alone, I think is difficult, even for a seasoned dancer.
Yeah, because for me, it was okay, they teach you one move, right? You do it, right? It's kind of like Simon Says, but it's a really long game of like Simon Says slash, actually, I would say it's more like Bop It, but it's just like a really extended, longer version of that. It's like you play the sound once, you repeat the sound, right? Or then they'll just keep doing it for 10, 15, 20, more moves, and it's like you're expected to layer on top and remember every single thing. And I think that was the hardest part. It was like, for me, just in that one time that I was trying it, like trying to just go through the act of remembering everything and keeping up. It was like, as they're moving on, it's kind of like, if you don't know the basics, right? If you can't remember it up to a certain point, then it's just going to be kind of a terrible experience for you, especially if you're just trying it for the first time, because it's just like, wait, what move was that again? And probably as a dancer, once you're kind of off of one move, I'm sure it's probably difficult to jump back on to the right time. But if you do probably mess up more than once, right? Like, it's totally off. It's like almost next to impossible to jump back on if you mess up like multiple times and you're offbeat or you forget something.
I imagine it's similar to how athletes feel in a sport like, say, basketball or tennis or something where you really have to have a lot of awareness of your body. I look at dance as a sport, or yeah, an athletic activity as well. Yeah, I mean, I early on, I would take classes, and if I messed up, it would definitely throw me off, and it would be kind of a blow to my ego and my focus. There were some classes where I would completely blank out and just forget the choreography, and stand there kind of frozen. Or I remember there was one class where I was dancing, and then they were like, "All right, we're gonna record this one," And I was like, no, there's going to be a record of this. And just the thought of it being recorded, I froze and embarrassed myself more than if I just messed up, just trying the choreography. And it's tough. To this day, I think I still struggle with that. So I don't know, Mike, to encourage you, if you still want to dance, just know someone who's been dancing for 12 years still freezes up and messes up and gets nervous. It kind of never goes away. You just learn how to deal with it.
I think for me, I do enjoy dance, but just maybe not in a choreographed form. Just there's no pressure kind of whatsoever. But that does lead me kind of like to the question of, you know, looking at high school and college, you talked about going through struggles, remembering lines, not remembering, sorry, not remembering lines, remembering choreography, feeling, dejected sometimes, and sometimes it wasn't always the best session. Like, what was your coping mechanism like back then versus like, what it was in college, and like, how did it change, right? Like, as you kind of got older, and more seasoned as like a dancer.
I don't know if I had good coping mechanisms back then, other than I can't get it. I need to keep practicing. It was a work hard for what you're not good at, kind of thing for me. But maybe that's also because I really enjoyed it and I really wanted it. Um, I Yeah, like if I was messing up on the choreography, I would just practice it over and over again, sometimes for hours. Um, and it would be after school, and I'd be practicing kind of in the quad area, and all of a sudden it's 7:30 p.m. Clearly school has ended, the sun has set, and I'm here alone out in the cold, sweating, because I'm practicing choreography because I just want to get it down. So I think I've built a lot of discipline because of dance. Um, I'd say now where I still have to find some coping mechanisms when dance is difficult and I feel dejected, and it happens in real time. It is truly a mental exercise of, hey, the voice inside my head that is trying to tell me that I'm not worthy or good enough to continue in this class. Shut up, bro. Like, get out. Just keep going. Um, and more often than not, just keep going, or continuing to go, and dance classes will get you most of the way there. Yeah, I'd also say dance is such a social activity that being with people that you like and that celebrate you and you feel comfortable with, that has helped me so much in my dance journey of feeling like I don't belong or I don't have the choreography. Is the support really does something. I've been a part of a number of teams at this point, and I think I continue to go back to teams because there's a security of having a group of people who are invested in the same thing that you are doing, and can help you and process movement and the way something is taught in different ways, so that you can also be taught by them and supported by them. Um, there are dance classes that I take from teachers who I didn't know before, and who I now know better and have built a relationship with. And when I compare my experiences of now knowing them better to before, when I didn't know them that well, I do so much better now. And sure, it's because I've become familiar with their choreography and their movement. But I also chalk it up to just having a relationship with them, and feeling more comfortable with them as people. I think it's related to some of my insecurities of like, this person doesn't know me, and if they don't know me, the only thing that they'll judge is my dancing. And if I mess up, then I've I've tainted their perception of me. But the more I've built relationships with people, with choreographers, with teachers, the less I think about what they'll think of me in terms of my dancing, and the more I value and weigh how they know me as a person. And that makes me feel comfortable more in class and allows me, I feel, to do better in a class.
Do you think that being with other people in a team, because obviously the teachers, they know the choreo the best, right? Or because they're the ones teaching it. Like they have this general structure down. But then when you're with other people in a class, right? Like they're also going through the same things that you're going through, right? Maybe you're really good at certain parts and they're, maybe you're not good at certain other parts, but they may be good at different parts that you're not good at. And so it's like you guys are learning collectively together and you guys can share in those wins and share in those um I wouldn't say losses, right? But more of like the elements where, you can improve together as a class. And so like that way it's not the burden all on you or them or everyone or like individually to learn and be perfect or not the burden to be perfect, right? But you guys learn together as a group. So I imagine that's probably what, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of the feeling experience that teams provide, it seems like, to dancers, and just also having that community to 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 build at a culture at a much more intimate level.
When done well, yes, that is what teams should be doing. Now, it is very possible, and it happens all the time that teams don't know how to cultivate that kind of space, and it happens organically, but especially within the competition space, it cannot happen. It can become a really cutthroat, competitive space that is not conducive to support and feeling like you're around people that you like. Some competitive teams have started because simply that they're competitive and it almost has been treated like work, but they're often not sustainable. And those teams don't really last that long.
Kind of want to go back to the college experience. So you mentioned, you joined a group, and talk to me about, your experiences with a college dance team and the type of experiences that, you know, you learned how to basically improve upon what you had already learned in high school, and how that has kind of carried you into your kind of dance career today.
The first thing that comes to mind is um, I joined a dance community that didn't get a lot of studio time. What I mean by that, and this is a shared experience across many dance teams, at least within California, dance teams weren't always seen in colleges as legitimate student groups. Many of them were formed as not official student groups recognized by like the student government. And so we weren't afforded the same facilities like dance programs, or ballet or jazz, things like that. So we practice outside. And I mean, we talked already about kind of the mirror and dancers using the mirror, but often we didn't have one. Many dancers at Irvine, UCLA, UC Berkeley, not all the students have access to mirrored rooms. We dance outside. So we need the feedback of our teammates in order to tell us if we're doing well or not, which means we have to be open to receiving kind of their critiques and their dissent and their observations. Um, I think that's really helped me to receive feedback, and not just in like the dance sense, but even the professional sense. But I think that's really, yeah, that's prepared me in terms of, yes, hearing other people's observations, but also becoming more aware of my body, knowing how it's moving without seeing it, but just creating more bodily awareness. And that has served me so well in kind of my post collegiate pursuit of dance, because dance becomes a bit more complex when you leave the collegiate scene. You start to do maybe more experimental things, or you're now performing with people and it's like contact where you're a part of a shape and someone's hands or body is on you and you have to be really aware of your body. Or maybe you're dancing around more props or within a specific space. Or you're dancing on a set, right, with a camera and actors and other people. The bodily awareness is so important. And I feel like I've built more of that because I needed, I was a sense, right, was taken away from me. I couldn't see my own body in the mirror. So I had to become accustomed to knowing what my body felt like.